all over to you.
Thank you. So my name is Lawrence Mburu, and I work for LGSS Digital as a digital service designer. Richard's mentioned that I just came back from Kenya, so I'll give you a bit of my background and say how the relevance of my background to my role in the digital team. So this is where I was a few weeks ago. That was my lifestyle when I was in primary school. So got herding for the first 13 years in the Rift Valley. And then that's my family in 1988. So this is, nothing much has changed here. And these boys are the same as I would have been then. The only difference is that I wouldn't be having shoes. Then I moved from there. Okay, living here was quite interesting because we had like very rich neighbors, and Kenya, being one of those poor African countries, has a very big, sharp difference between the people who have and people who do not have. So there was this particular time, me and my friend visited our neighbor who used to fly over. They had a plane and a dog, and some of his insights from early childhood became very, very like kind of questions in my head about, you know, insights in different people's values and what people life is all about. Fast forward to now, so I grew up and moved to the city and got myself into uni and studied as a teacher. From teaching, I moved into design for publishing, and then I came over here and studied a master's in arts management and moved into the digital. So I'm sure if you have any, yeah, so I'll try and go through the relevant content as much as I can so that we have some room for any questions at the end. So fast forwarding to now, this is my team actually. I'm using this image on fair use policy. These are self-portraits of my team. It's a very diverse, multidisciplinary team. And this is my position in the team. As a designer, I work very closely with developers, service architects, and project managers and stakeholders, all to work for the users and the people who commission the work. So the 2 points that I would like to convey today is, one, as we talk about digital technology and digital devices, is to remember that it's not about the technology. It's all about the people, what the things do to people to make their lives better. And secondly, designing for everyone does not just include accessibility, like people who have disabilities. It's also to bear in mind the context, to think about what's happening around the people we are designing for and what they're going through and what they might be going through. So in a nutshell, one second, I'll minimize my, so I'll talk about designing for inclusion, what to think about, what we think about, and what we have learned, the insights and the principles that we have used. I'll talk about design for diversity and a bit on process, because Chloe has talked much about user research and the design process. And then I'll talk about how we've accessed our users and how that has helped. So designing for inclusion means that we took a position of social responsibility. It means that we have to strive to make sure that everything we design is accessible to everyone on all devices and wherever they may be. And we also try to think of who we might be excluding in our design and lower the barrier for participation. So users could be anywhere. When we design from the office, we always remember that users might be in different situations and different circumstances. So first, lots of people to think about broadly is the people who find it hard to understand. And that means it's not just because of disability, but our ability to understand information varies throughout our lives and can be affected temporarily or permanently because of disease or disability. So what we try to do in our team is to avoid, we try to use as plain language as possible, and we don't use long paragraphs, And we also try to make sure that we don't use a lot of abbreviations. And when we do, we try to make sure that we explain what the abbreviation stands for. So the second lot of people that we think about is the people who need a custom design. So we have like seasoned computer users who have, for medical conditions, they are used to customizing their own things using their style sheets. So we try to discourage the use of PDFs and any other in formats that cannot be adjusted. So we prefer more like plain HTML formats. The next lot of people is people in very distracting situations. So we think about the context of people. Like someone might be trying to take care of a child, and because of mobile technology, now we know that people might be in a bus, might be doing multitasking. So we try to make sure that if there's any moving content, that someone has more control, they can pause it. And if pages can time out, we try to make sure that we give the people a chance to extend the timeout. We also try to label tasks very clearly so that if someone stops halfway through a process, when they come back, they can easily identify how far they had gone in a process. People with screen readers is another lot of people that we always consider, because this is a more technical thing. So screen readers access any digital content the way like search engines do. So we try to make sure that technically speaking, everything has been set in a way that the screen readers will work for them and arrange content in a logical order. Something else to consider is people who are not online for any reason, either temporary disconnection or they simply do not have access to the internet. So we make sure that we give people options and make sure that we can provide any content or service in other formats, if it's content in Braille or any other, or large print format, if they cannot access the internet and be able to use any assistive technology. People who find it hard to read. Now this is interesting because they're all different levels of skill, and for some reasons, either because of language differences or age or disability, or just the conditions. Sometimes it's hard to read things. I remember once when I was very new to the UK, I was driving without a sat nav on M1, and this driving south in the morning, the sun was right ahead of me, and I tried to read the signs, but because they are backlit, it was very difficult. I relied on the road just turning a bit so that I can be able to see where I'm going. So there could be conditions that makes it harder for someone to read, like being out in the sun or things like that. So we try to think about contrast and things like that. So we make sure that there's enough space between lines of text, and we don't track letters. We don't readjust the fonts, but try to use the right font that is more legible and has enough contrast. People who can't talk doesn't just mean like people who have lost the ability to speak, but also someone might be in a situation where they need to give personal details, or for some reason they're not comfortable talking, or they may be hard talking, or they're in a noisy place. So consider that. So make sure there's enough. We have options for that we don't rely on just a phone call to deliver a service. We make sure that there's an option for that. And there's also people who can't see color. This is very common for people who do visual design, about colorblind, because there's lots of people around the world who cannot see different colors clearly. So for that reason, we don't give instructions that rely only on color. For like, you could say, in the red box, you'll find this, or you use different ways, visual cues for that. So we don't communicate just using color. this is a common one. There's lots of people say that, oh, I'm not very good at computers. So thinking about people like that is very crucial, so that you try and design simple designs that build their confidence in using digital technology. People who find it hard to see. So I wear glasses myself. So it's very clear, like lots of people have different levels of inability to see things, and consider that. And what we do for that, we try to make sure that we zoom in the browsers as well to see whether the content can resize properly, that people don't have to scroll sideways to see all the content. And we don't use very low color contrasts. And we use the fonts that are obvious and shapes that are easier to distinguish. This is an example of an app for the Household Waste and Recycling Center, where we had to choose this font that is very hardy. It's waterproof, because this app is used by the staff at the recycling center, and the conditions might be any kind of weather conditions, really. It might be raining, and it's a very busy place. This font can drop. So this is a shockproof font. It's water resistant, and trying to make the fonts large enough and the contrast sharp enough for them to be able to see. So they use this gadget to take a picture of a vehicle registration, and it will show on straight from the system, show whether they have the permit to come and dispose of their recycling material. So that's one of the things to consider. It's not just like people who cannot see, but also the conditions under which they are looking at things. People who can't hear, it's not just also people who have lost the ability to perceive sound, but also people in noisy places and people who are in any kind of a situation that may not be able to, or a device can fail and they can't hear what you're saying. So trying to design things that have more than one cues for them. So after covering those people, the kind of range of customers, the citizens that we design things for, we always worked in diversity. So this means working with people who are very different from each other. There's so much to learn from each other, and also a lot of, so building diversity in our craft meant that we work with people who are very different from each other. And a great team is made up of individuals with a wide range of characteristics and experiences. So because every day we realize that we are working towards an ever global audience. So diversity helps, one, for the designs we come up with, and also for the diversity of ideas and solutions that we might come up with. That's a little graphic there for diversity. This process that we use, called Agile process, Chloe has talked extensively about user research and the design process, but our principle here is the reason why we use Agile process is to be able to turn around products in a short time. And if we are going to fail on something, we try to fail fast and learn from it and move quickly. So we define the minimum standard for excellence, and we agree on what is good enough. So that helps us to resist the need to over-engineer things and take too long. So we try to have fun while building and grow as a result of what we learn. And always remember that excellence does not mean perfectionism. So this is a process that we use just in a very quick run through. We first do the research, we immerse ourselves in context, we share the knowledge and experience with each other, and then we distill all the pain points and the areas of friction that the service is not functioning properly. After that, we go into ideation, where we try and brainstorm and create ideas, narrow down to the best idea and prototype. And we take that prototype to the hands of the people who might be using the service. And then we learn, and then we validate the concept. We prototype again and test, get feedback, and we keep improving in that way. That's a process in a snapshot. This is an example of an app that we built. Social workers in Cambridgeshire needed an easier way of reporting soft concerns to avoid any safeguarding issues. And instead of using laptops, we created an app that was used on the move, and it was used by one from the left-hand side. So one app was used by 3 teams that are very separate from each other, but they have the same kind of they link 3 teams. The contracts team, the people who give the service providers the work to do, the multi-agency safeguarding hub that is addresses the issues of any kind of vulnerable adults, and the social workers who go out to the community using one app. And over 1,200 providers of services that have been commissioned, and this affects the impact of this is over 20,000 users. So that's just an example of, and within, since going live, we had about 197 more cases reported because it made it easier for the social workers to report the concerns. So having access to our users has been invaluable. And not just building services and improving already existing ones, but also trying to see the value of existing services. Like one of the young people's website was built like 10 years ago, when websites were quite something. Now during the age of TikTok, we had to get out in the field and talk to young people and see how they use the website. And we learned a lot, but to be able to attract the young people, we had a lot of the techniques and the skills to work with them. We went to the Fenlands in the rural Cambridgeshire, worked with children, painted some pictures, had a chat with them. That was my painting of Mount Kenya, chatting with children about what concerns they might have and how they're able to address their own issues in order to get insights, and give them some sketch pads to see how they come up with their own solutions. We did a nosy ducks, kind of a hooker duck answer question winner prize to attract attention. And there we are with my team. We got a few participants there. This is an example of a worksheet. We were working with mental health and trying to get people to make suggestions of how we can come up with the solutions for that. And the last point would be about digital ethics from me. In principle, we say that if you wouldn't want it done to you, don't do it to someone else, because we realize that we are living in a very digital time, but most people do not understand digital technology. So making people's data safe is very crucial. It's very important so that people have more confidence in the digital platforms. And always remember that as a designer of digital services, that you're never alone. When people understand the value of design, they become our greatest advocates. And together we create an organizational culture of learning and understanding in this new world where transparency, accountability, and consensus are the keys to be taken seriously. Thank you. And those are my details. I hope I haven't gone too fast. I was a bit pressed for time.
Perfect, Lawrence. That was brilliant.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Do you think your background makes you a naturally more empathetic designer?
I think so, because I've been forced to go through different kind of environments. Sorry. Because moving from the village and from the savannah, every time I had to interact with a different group of people and try to understand what drives them, what's their insight, and try to connect with them and try to fit in. So I think that has helped me try to put myself in other people's shoes and try to see from their point of view.
Okay. And what's the thing that you've designed that you're most proud of?
I think it's that app that I've just shown, because it followed a nice process, and I was very new to the whole idea of concerns, but and also I value prevention. I do value that approach of not solving problems when they happen, but trying to come up with a way of stopping them before they occur.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, mate. Thank you for taking the time out today. I think we'll end